The night sea crashed against the shore like the heartbeat of a wife holding a sweet secret, the birthday gift hidden in her bag, a Rolex Submariner, the one her husband had once paused before in a store window and sighed, maybe another time. Simone didn't wait for another time. She and her daughter Aaliyah had crossed half the world, carrying a simple plan. Knock on the villa door by the beach, turn on the lights and say, "Happy early birthday." The airport board flickered with delays. The loudspeaker's calls stretched like a tense string. Simone didn't care. 18 years of marriage still made her feel as shy as a girl on her first date. Beside her, 15-year-old Aaliyah was typing the last lines of code on her laptop, her face calm, almost too calm. "What are you working on, sweetheart?" "A gift, so Dad will remember." There was no sweetness in her tone. It was a fine, cold line of sound. Simone shivered for a second, then brushed it off. Love, after all, makes people choose the comfort of believing. The taxi pulled away from the airport. Phuket streamed past the window lanterns, spice-laden air, tropical humidity. The villa looked just like in the photos. White walls, red roof, a pool as blue as waiting eyes. And then a single discordant note. A pair of red high heels on the stairs. Not hers. A familiar perfume, masculine. The hum of the air conditioner. The distant sea. The pounding of her heart, close. The bedroom door opened. Ronnie lay in bed, the sheets creased. At the edge sat a woman with dark hair and a silk blouse the color of the ocean. That face, Simone knew it like sunlight from her childhood. Her sister, Carissa. The Rolex in her bag suddenly weighed twice as much. Time, the thing Ronnie built houses to measure in milestones and contracts, stopped cold in Phuket. From that moment, the story's question was no longer, who's to blame? It was, how should justice arrive? Through confession, jealousy, or through data? People say the guilty always start with, "It's not what you think," as if words could rewrite a crime scene. "Sim, I can explain." "Explain what? Why my sister is sitting on your bed?" Simone's question didn't need an answer. In her eyes burned two flames, one for the past that had just turned to ash, and one for the future, something that would have to be rebuilt from nothing. Aaliyah didn't look long. She placed a hand on her mother's shoulder. "Let's go, Mom." No shouting, no plates breaking to match the sound inside her chest. Mother and daughter walked out of the house reeking of perfume and old champagne, as if leaving a poorly staged play. At the hotel, under the dim gold light, Simone sat frozen on the bed like a statue that had just torn out its own heart. Aaliyah opened her laptop. Tabs bloomed across the screen like a map of stars' check-in points, post times, frequency charts, correlation graphs. "You think I didn't know?" Aaliyah whispered. "For 2 months I've tracked their digital fingerprints. No hacking, no intrusion, just OSINT all public data. I gathered digital crumbs to rebuild the picture." "Oh." She showed her mother a file. Digital analysis of covert social connections. Spatial temporal mapping. Social media interaction graphs. Probability of co-occurrence. Predictive behavior modeling. The final slide was just one sentence. Established existence of covert connection through statistically significant evidence chain. "What are you going to do with this?" Simone asked. "Send it to the people who deserve to know the truth. At exactly 8 a.m. Atlanta time." "Oh." Simone's breath caught. Even in heartbreak, the mother in her rose first. "Sweetheart, justice can turn into revenge if we forget our own ethics." Aaliyah looked up. In her daughter's eyes, Simone saw a reflection of her younger self, pure faith in what is right. "I'm not fabricating. I'm not slandering. I'm just presenting facts scientifically. If morality is our light, data is only the flashlight that helps it reach the dark." Outside, the sea kept breathing. Simone stared at the Rolex, the relic of a love wound tight by illusion. And she understood. Sometimes silence is a decision to let truth speak for itself. "All right," she whispered. "But after that click, we live with whatever follows." Aaliyah nodded. "I've already calculated that." And she pressed send. 8 a.m. in Atlanta. Inboxes lit up like rows of windows opening their blinds at once. Partners, clients, relatives, colleagues. Each received a polished report: methods, graphs, maps, open-source data appendices. No insults, no accusations, only evidence. At Ronnie's breakfast table, the world flipped over. Phones rang. Check your email, Ronnie. A partner, a client, a Georgia Tech professor. Some marveled at Aaliyah's skill. Others coldly canceled contracts. Old interviews about family values turned into exhibits in a moral trial. His home-building brand collapsed right at the foundation of trust. Across town, in a car showroom, Carissa felt every gaze like a microscope. The manager held up a printout. "We sell cars to families. We can't have a story like this standing behind our counter." The door closed. Outside, Number Digital Justice climbed to the top of the trends. Tech forums cited the case as a textbook example of open-source investigation and digital ethics. Lawyers examined the file. A judge turned the pages. The evidence is entirely based on public data, properly analyzed and cross-verified. The court accepts it. The cold language of the courtroom suddenly sounded. Humans standing beside a weary woman and a 15-year-old girl holding a flashlight to the shadows of adults. Ronnie hired experts to challenge the analysis. Their verdict was brief. The methodology is sound. The data is verifiable, cannot be refuted. The only defense left was conscience, and that doesn't appeal in writing. That night, Simone placed the Rolex on the table. The timepiece lay still, as if admitting, "When trust dies, every gift becomes evidence." She signed the divorce papers without trembling. Aaliyah stood beside her, silent just as she had been when she pressed the button in Phuket. And then, as every storm eventually passes, the sky opened to another horizon. A flight ticket to Munich. A German garden, disciplined yet gentle. Frederick, an automotive security engineer with eyes the color of listening. Paul, the grandfather who once planted the seed of truth in a little girl. But that's a story for another part. For now, we pause to understand one thing. Data doesn't save people. People save people. Data only lights the path. Stepping forward with courage and humanity was up to Simone and Aaliyah. State Court of Georgia. March. Heavy curtains blocked the daylight, leaving only two things in the room: voices and evidence. Simone sat in the front row, face bare of makeup. She hadn't come to win, she'd come to end. Beside her, Aaliyah stood tall, hair tied neatly back, holding a thick stack of papers titled Digital Justice, a Case Study on Ethical Transparency. Ronnie's attorney motioned to have Aaliyah's data excluded as evidence, claiming violation of privacy. The judge tapped the gavel. "Miss, where did you obtain your data?" "From public space, Your Honor. Social media, open location tags, images they themselves shared." "And how do you prove its authenticity?" "Scientific method. Everything is reproducible." The room fell silent. For a few seconds, only the sound of pages turning and the steady tick of the courtroom clock. Then, the judge smiled, a rare gesture in the world of law. "This world could use more young women like you, and fewer adults like them." The trial was quiet. No tears, no TV drama, no grand theatrics. Only one fair verdict. Simone gained full custody, the house, and control of joint assets. Ronnie lost almost everything: money, reputation, and even the right to tell the story his way. On the courthouse steps, reporters were waiting. One asked Aaliyah, "Do you regret it? Making your father lose everything?" The girl looked straight into the camera. No one loses everything as long as they still have the chance to learn how to be human again. That sentence became the headline of hundreds of articles. A publisher offered to turn their story into a book, but Simone declined. "Justice is only beautiful," she said, "when it doesn't turn into a performance." That night, mother and daughter left Atlanta. Their plane climbed toward Munich, where Paul, the old uncle, had already opened the door to a new beginning. Below them, the city shrank into a network of lights like one of Aaliyah's data graphs, now transformed into a map of new possibilities. Spring in Munich, cold, yet so clean it almost stings the skin. The cobblestone streets felt like quiet lines drawn between what was old and what was new, what was wrong and what could still be right. Frederick, the German engineer with calm blue eyes, met Simone for the first time in a small cafe near the Research Institute. He didn't know who she was, only saw an Asian woman writing in silence, occasionally touching a broken watch on her wrist. "Beautiful watch," he said, his German accent thick. "But it's not running." Simone smiled. "Because it once witnessed a moment when time shouldn't have gone on." Frederick nodded. "Then maybe you should let it run again. Time isn't the one to blame." From that conversation, they became friends. Frederick never asked about her past, he simply listened to her present. He taught Aaliyah German and guided her in using AI systems for automotive safety technology made to protect people, not harm them. One evening, Paul, the gentle old uncle, offered Simone a cup of tea and said, "My dear, justice isn't about striking back. It's about making sure the world doesn't become like the ones who hurt you." Simone sat silent for a long while. She realized forgiveness wasn't about forgetting, it was about choosing not to carry the weight anymore. Aaliyah, now the youngest auditing student at the Munich Institute of Data Science, presented her research titled Ethical Algorithms When Machines Need a Human Heart. Her professor read the paper and nodded. "You've turned pain into a theory." Aaliyah smiled softly. "No, I just want to make sure no one else has to live through it again." Their small apartment on Leopold Street was filled with light now. On the table lay the old Rolex, but this time it was ticking. Not because time had been repaired, but because the one who wore it was finally ready to live again. 3 years later, an email appeared in Aaliyah's inbox. Subject: Request for interview, Psychological Impact Study. Zender: Ronnie Thompson. Simone's hand trembled slightly as she read it. "He wants to meet you? He says he wants to understand what it feels like to be the victim." Aaliyah agreed, not out of curiosity, but because science must face the truth. It was raining lightly in Munich the day they met. Ronnie sat across from her, older, his eyes faded, the old wedding ring still on his hand. He spoke slowly, as if afraid the words might shatter. "I've read your research paper. Every line felt like a verdict, but also like a mirror." Aaliyah answered softly, "I wasn't trying to judge anyone. I just told what happened." "And you were right too," Ronnie sighed. "So precise that I couldn't lie to myself anymore." He pulled out a small notebook, pages filled with uneven handwriting. A therapy journal. "You know," he said, "justice doesn't really end in a courtroom. It begins inside the mind of the guilty when he finally dares to face what he's done." Simone stepped into the room. For a moment, the three of them were silent. Between them wasn't hatred anymore, but a clean, empty space like a room just opened to sunlight. "You're late," Simone said quietly. "I know," Ronnie murmured. "But if time could turn back—" She cut him off gently. "Don't. Time doesn't turn back. It only teaches us to move forward or stay stuck forever." When Ronnie left, Aaliyah whispered to her mother, "Mom, I didn't think justice would feel this sad." Simone smiled faintly. "Justice isn't sad, sweetheart. It's just quiet like the sea after a storm." 10 years later, on the giant screen of the International Conference on AI Ethics in Geneva, a title appeared: Keynote Speaker, Dr. Aaliyah Thompson, founder of the Digital Justice Lab. The hall fell silent as she walked on stage. No one knew she had once been the girl at the heart of that old case. Aaliyah began with a single line: "We live in an age where data can condemn but only compassion can redeem." She retold the Phuket case, without names, without blame. Only the journey of a child who learned to separate fact from feeling, and then discovered that justice, without empathy, is just another kind of violence. At the end, she projected an image of a Rolex stopped at 3:17 a.m., the exact moment she once pressed send. "That was the last second of my past," she said. "From that point on, I learned to love through light." The audience rose to their feet, applauding. In the crowd, Frederick held Simone's hand. She watched their daughter, the girl who once used data for retribution, now using it to protect the world. Paul smiled softly and whispered, "My niece has done what philosophers call making peace with the dark." Night falls over the small apartment in Munich. Simone sits by the window, listening to the soft rain tapping on the roof. On the table, the old watch ticks steadily once more. On the wall hangs a photograph Aaliyah in Geneva, her smile bright and sure. Beneath it rests a handwritten letter from Ronnie, his final one, sent from a nursing home in Atlanta. "I know I can't ask for forgiveness. I only hope to be remembered as someone who was once loved." Simone folds the letter and exhales. No anger, no pity, just quiet peace. Because, in the end, justice isn't about punishing anyone. It's about putting each person back in their rightful place within your heart. She turns to Frederick and says softly, "Time's running right again." He smiles. "It's not the clock, it's you." Outside, church bells ring. Simone looks out at the street golden lights mingling with rain, forming trails that shimmer like streams of flowing data. But this time they don't expose, they connect. And the narration closes. There are justices written in laws, and justices written only in kindness. Data can reveal what went wrong, but only people can heal it. If you're holding on to a past that hasn't closed, remember, every clock can be wound again. All it takes is the courage to forgive and the grace to live one more time.